legal name, date of birth, address, driver's license, social security number, height, weight, fingerprint, DNA sequence, and your favorite ice cream flavor, please?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, and are you a robot by any chance?
No.
Okay, congratulations. You can now publish a game on Steam. We just need you to fill out a few things about your game.
Wait, what's even a capsule art? So apparently when you publish a Steam page, it wants you to upload a capsule art, which is like a thumbnail for your game. The only thing I had that remotely resembled a capsule art is this. Yeah, I don't think I should use it. Luckily, there's a very common trick used by game devs to create compelling capsule arts. It's called hiring a professional artist. The problem with that is I'm broke. So I hired myself, and I'll happily accept subscribers as payment. Subscribe. Anyways, I did some research online, and it seems like the main purpose of a capsule art is capturing someone's attention. There are many ways to do it, like using strong color contrast, having a unique art style, or you can use neuron activation. The next step is looking for some inspiration. I have a game where you solve weird captures inside a fake operating system, and I went on Steam to look for some similar games. My game is a little unique though, and honestly, there is no game like it. There is no game. Here's their capsule art, and it definitely captured the essence of the game, non-game. I also found some other ones I liked, and the main takeaway is that these people do not know how to peek. I started sketching out some ideas, and at first I wanted to make a collage of everything kind of similar to There Is No Game, but it's a little hard to tell exactly what's going on, especially when people are scrolling at like 60 miles per hour. So I decided to instead go for a simpler formula with just the game logo and one clear graphical element. To the surprise of no one, I picked a traffic light for the graphical element. I also added a camera to help with the composition, but it kinda started to look like a road management game, which is not what I'm making. So I added this square with the checkmark to make it unmistakably about captures. After that, I wrote down my game's title, Capture Hell, and placed it on top of the traffic light pole. Now some of you might be wondering, wasn't your game titled Capture Hell? I just wanted to buy concert tickets for my friend, but now I'm trapped and trying to prove that I'm a human. So basically, would you look at this stick for a second? Anyways, I put down some colors just to see how everything would turn out, and there's just something I don't like about the frontal view of the traffic light. So I sketched out a second angle where you're looking up at the traffic light instead. The downside is that I have to do a 2-point perspective drawing, which is significantly more annoying. I never properly studied perspective, but fortunately, there's one powerful trick called adjusting until it looks right.
A few moments later.
Eventually, I was able to finish the outline of the traffic light, so I moved on to coloring it. I started with a reddish background because red is like hell, but I eventually settled on a blue background. You might think this is a random shade of blue, but this is actually 1A73E8, the infamous blue that we all know too well. Plus, it contrasts really nicely with the red light. I then added a little bit of shading to make things look shaded, and that's it for the traffic light. I moved on to the game logo, which is where I struggled the most. My approach was to lean into the blue background and use a font that's capture-like. I'm pretty sure reCAPTCHA uses a font called Roboto. It's actually a pretty standard font, but I'm looking for something with a more rounded C, so I ended up choosing this font called Source Sans 3, which is kind of similar to Roboto. I can then turn the C into this symbol, which is loosely associated with captchas. I also used the space inside the letter A to show the silhouette of a mouse cursor, since my game has a fake operating system and is mostly point and click. I was pretty happy with how the word captcha turned out, so I moved on to hell. I tried a lot of ideas, like the flame silhouette, the glitch effect, and even spelling out hell on a grid, which in hindsight
This land gets nothing. Wouldn't you agree?
thought it should be 500, no? Reliquaries. Let's just wait. 3-1.
It was a terrible idea. I also tried just using a simple font, but it kept reminding me of a certain drink for some reason. Well, at least it was a fitting label. At this point, I was completely stuck and out of ideas, but then it dawned on me. You don't see one of these much anymore, but we all remember the infamous text captcha, and I can just turn the word hell into one of these. With the logo concept fleshed out, I just had to create a vectorized version of it. The tricky part was finding a balance between keeping it readable while still making it look like a captcha. Eventually, I have something I'm happy with, and it's time to put everything together. It was kind of a lie when I said Steam wants a capsule art. It actually wants 4 different capsule arts, all with different aspect ratios. So I had to adjust the composition for each version. I did end up removing the camera from the horizontal layouts because it kept getting in the way of the logo, and honestly, nobody likes those anyways. I also added a slight shadow under the logo which makes it pop a little more, and after some final adjustments, here is the result. Now there's still something bothering me about the capsule art. I just couldn't quite put my finger on it, but it just felt slightly disconnected from the game itself. Since my game uses pixel graphics, I tried making a pixelated version of Hell instead, and I think it finally tied everything together. At this point, I figured it would be a good idea to see how it actually looks on Steam, so I shamelessly photoshopped my game onto the top 100 games page. I also tested the other capsule sizes in their respective spots, and honestly, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. And if you want to tell me what you think, I just opened my Discord server. Hello? Is anyone here? I know this is a little different from my usual game dev stuff, but I've been busy getting the Steam page ready, and I definitely underestimated how much work there would be. I'll be back with another game dev video soon, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
This shot looks complicated, but it's not. To do this properly, you will need a custom facial topology for your character. But that's a luxury most of us don't have, so I cheated. At first I thought, oh, if only I could just duplicate the eye, place it there, blend it somehow. Yep, that's it. I hid everything but the eye, save it as a new file. Then I made a lattice, basically a magic box that lets you bend anything. Now the eye can go anywhere. Literally anywhere. I pointed the eye to the head and animated pushing through the skin. Then I used a free soft mod plugin to make the skin react. It's all about delusion. If you wanna go deeper and actually see how this works step by step, I created a
What is a guitar cat? Is that a... What the f... Feed. So a while ago, I made a poll asking
Видите ли, Windows — это мастодонт этого мира. Это вам не универсальность и радио, это машина, где умирают и появляются жизни. Но так вышло, что у Windows есть парочку проблем, которые не фиксит уже пару тысяч лет. Давайте я с вами поговорю про типы синхронизации и мощи ядра в Linux. И
The .NET, a free and open source platform for building high-performance software in virtually every domain. It can tackle web apps, mobile apps, enterprise software, games, and more, powered primarily by the C# programming language. It was developed by Microsoft in the early 2000s as a Windows-centric framework, then rebooted in 2016 as .NET Core. And finally, in 2020, they dropped the core and unified the platform into modern .NET, with yearly releases that also target Linux, Mac OS, and the cloud. At a high level, .NET is built around a managed runtime called the Common Language Runtime, which handles memory management, garbage collection, and security, so you don't have to. This allows developers to write code in high-level languages like object-oriented C# or its cooler functional brother F#, or even the mentally ill cousin Visual Basic. No matter which language you choose, they all get compiled into an intermediate format called Common Intermediate Language, then just-in-time or ahead-of-time compiled into native machine code by the Common Language Runtime. This design lets multiple languages share the same runtime and libraries while still delivering near-native performance across platforms. But what really makes .NET special is its integrated ecosystem, like ASP.NET for regular web apps, Blazor for WebAssembly-powered apps, Entity Framework Core for dead simple database access, Maui for cross-platform mobile apps, and Poly for fault tolerance, just to name a few. And you'll find packages for virtually every use case in the NuGet package manager. On top of that, many third-party frameworks embed .NET to give developers the experience they crave, like Unity for game developers, QuantConnect for algo traders, and AutoCAD for real engineers who build real things in the real world. To get started, install .NET, then open up VS Code and make sure you have the C# DevKit extension enabled. Now hit Ctrl-P and find the new project command. There are all sorts of templates to start from, but let's keep it simple with the console app to build a CLI tool. And now we can open up this C# file and start writing some code. It's a hugely popular, strongly typed language that gives us excellent IntelliSense out of the box. Today, we're building an app called Only Horse Fans, and unfortunately, we need to verify that the user is 18 years old to comply with recent draconian legislation from our globalist overlords. To achieve that, we'll first have the user enter their age into the console, which we can do with the built-in console class. Once we have the user's age in the standard input, we can then parse the value into an integer. And then finally, we'll set up a ternary operator here to grant access if the age is over 18, or deny access otherwise. And now let's open up the terminal and run it. Notice how we also get beautiful autocomplete and documentation in the entire CLI. Use the .NET run command to compile and execute the code. This has been .NET in 100 seconds. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
I don't care, I just want to play Virus.
Last week, I was looking for some software to solve a very specific problem. Lo and behold, I found this great app for $10. But as a Vibe engineer, I didn't pay for it. Instead, I spent 3 days, $500 in Claude credits, and missed my kid's baseball game over the weekend to build a crappier version from scratch. Developers are living in weird times. Some of us are becoming less productive and ditching AI altogether. Like the streamer Coding Garden just completely destroyed the grift in this video.
And it's not fun. It's not fun at all.
But many others are going all in automation and seeing productivity gains like never before. Every employee at multi-trillion-dollar company NVIDIA is now AI enabled.
Every one of our engineers, 100%, is now assisted by AI coders, and our productivity has gone up incredibly.
The truth is that AI does suck. It's like gambling. When you prompt it and the code actually works, you feel that indescribable rush of dopamine.
I'm coming day and night. I mean, it's terrific.
But eventually, your prompt won't work, and this leads to a vicious cycle that I like to call the prompt treadmill of hell, where you keep burning through credits but never actually get what you need. Despite that drawback, there are ways to make AI coding more reliable and quasi-deterministic, thanks to the power of Model Context Protocol servers. In today's video, we'll look at 7 MCP servers every dev needs to know about to make AI coding suck less. It is October 14th, 2025, and you're watching The Code Report. I think it's safe to say that the majority of programmers are now using AI in some capacity, but very few are using it to its full potential. If you don't already have a couple of MCP servers hooked up to Claude Code, Cursor, OpenCode, or whatever you prefer, you're falling behind and you're not going to make it. But what even is a Model Context Protocol server? Well, in one sentence, it's a standardized way for your coding agent to talk to external systems. That could be an app running on your local machine, it could be a remote server that runs your code, or it could be a third-party API. To understand its full potential, let's look at some examples. On this channel, I've complained endlessly about AI not being able to generate proper Svelte 5 code. Well, luckily, just a few days ago, that problem has been solved thanks to the release of the Svelte MCP server. All you have to do is install this bad boy in your favorite coding tool, like I'm using Claude Code here, and now instead of going in blind, you can start a prompt with /Svelte. This will automatically tell Claude how to get the right Svelte documentation, and more importantly, use the Svelte autofixer. It'll perform a static analysis on the code and deslopify it when the LLM hallucinates random React.js code in your project. But if you're a front-end developer, the most time-consuming task is implementing your designer's Figma files into actual code. Well, not anymore. The Figma MCP server allows you to connect your local Figma app on the desktop or in the cloud. It'll pull a design file and automatically implement it in HTML and CSS. You can even generate React components, use Tailwind, or build iOS UI elements using Figma's more reliable tooling. Pretty cool, but what if you're building something like a payment system with a third-party API? This is something you really can't afford to screw up. Well, Stripe and many other APIs now have an MCP server that can fetch documentation for the exact API version you're using. Not only that, but it has a long list of tools you can use to access live data in Stripe, opening the door to all sorts of possibilities, like accidentally refunding 10,000 customers with a single prompt. Now, even if you leverage these tools, your code is still probably going to break in unexpected ways at runtime. If you use a monitoring tool like Sentry, you can access all of the issues and errors your AI assistant missed before deploying. Instead of trying to understand the slop you rolled out a few minutes ago, you just tell it to query the Sentry issues and fix them on the fly. That's helpful, but not all runtime issues can be caught. At other times, it might be the QA guy who worked at Blizzard for 7 years who assigns you a Jira ticket to fix some pointless edge case he found, in which case you'll want to have the Atlassian or GitHub MCP server installed. You can use it to automatically pull issues and tickets without ever needing to read them yourself. You just run a prompt that tells the AI to fix the issue and close the ticket, while you sit on the train reading your favorite book. That's awesome, and if you follow this guide, you'll eventually have a billion-dollar app that requires more infrastructure to scale. There are now MCP servers for AWS, Cloudflare, Vercel, and many others that can let AI provision the actual resources you use in the cloud. In theory, the great thing about robots is that they won't forget to shut down an EC2 instance that will destroy your finances, but don't quote me on that. So far, all the examples we've looked at require the trust of a third-party developer.
So you have to trust us. Just relax and fall. 1, 2, 3. No, wait, no!
What's cool about this protocol, though, is that it's essentially standardized now, and you can use it to build your own highly specialized server. Like maybe you want a server that can look up custom data sources, manage your smart home, or really anything you can imagine. And they're easy to build because there's now an MCP framework for every major programming language out there. But after you build one, you'll need a place to deploy it, and an awesome platform you need to know about is Savala, the sponsor of today's video. It's a modern successor to Heroku that combines Google Kubernetes Engine engine with Cloudflare to give you a simple way to deploy full-stack applications, databases, and static sites without drowning in YAML configs. We can easily ship our app by connecting a Git repo in the Savala dashboard or by selecting one of their pre-built templates. But once it's live, you get app analytics, environment variables, and everything else you need to scale your app. You also get real environment pipelines for preview, staging, and production, so your team can promote changes safely instead of just praying to the prod gods. So try out Savala for free with $50 in free credits using the link below. This has been the Code Report. Thanks for watching, and I will see you.
I'm not sure what those radiant glacial wolves and antelopes do. Let's go for, like, you know, Dorian. And we'll figure this out.
So today we're going to talk about Euclid's algorithm. So give me two numbers, Brady. Two 3-digit numbers, let's say.
3-digit numbers. Yeah. 484.
484.
781.
781. So we're going to find the greatest common divisor of these two numbers. So that's going to be the largest number that divides both 484 and 781.
Oh, I didn't give you a prime, did I?
I don't know yet. We'll find out. 484 is definitely not prime because 484 is 22 squared. So we could actually already find out the greatest common divisor that way, but I'm going to show you this algorithm. And this algorithm I was actually taught probably about 10 years ago by Vicky Neal, who has been on your podcast, the late, great Vicky Neal. So it's very fun for me to be able to share this today. So the largest factor of both 484 and 781. So we're going to start with 781 because it's the bigger, and that equals 1 times 484 with a remainder of, and now I'm going to have to do this math in my head. We've got 7 here, 9 there, and 2.
That's just one subtract the other, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So this is the first step of our algorithm. What we do for the next step is we're going to take this number and move it all the way to here. So we'll take 484 and put it here. And then we take 297, put it here. And how many times did 297 go into 484? Well, that's also once. but this time it's with a remainder of 187. Okay, so now we repeat. 297 goes here, 187 goes here, and again this is 1, and that's a remainder, this one's easy, 110, and we keep going, and hope we don't run out of paper. Plus 77, 110 equals 1 times 77 plus 33. 77 equals 2 times 33.
Oh, at last.
Plus 11. Okay, 33 then equals 3 times 11 with no remainder, so we stop here.
That's the stop point when you've got no remainder.
Stop point when we've got no remainder, and I've got to thank you now, Brady, for picking a number that takes the length of the paper. Couldn't have done it better.
Is it not normally, you wouldn't have expected it to take that long?
I have done some that take longer, I have done some that are done in 2 steps. It can really depend. And I can't reiterate more, we did not prepare this. So, this tells us this last remainder term is our greatest common divisor.
The 11.
The 11. Obviously in maths often we want to know, is that actually true? I can tell you it's true all I like, but is it really? And we can test this. How do we know 11 is the greatest common divisor? Well, there are 2 things we want to know. We want to know that it is a divisor, and we want to know that any divisor of 484 and 781 is at most 11. So there's not one greater. So to tell it's a divisor is actually kind of okay, because we see from this bottom line, 11 is a divisor of 11. 1 times 11 is 11, 11 divides 11. And this bottom line tells us that 11 divides 33. Obviously, we did already know that, but if we didn't and had more complicated numbers, this bottom line can tell us that. So we've got 11 divides 33, which means that 11 divides all of this side of the equation. So it's got to divide this side of the equation as well. So 11 divides 77. Okay, 11 divides 33 and 77, so it divides all of this side of the equation, so it has to divide all of that side of the equation. And we can keep going up, which tells us that then 11 divides, well, from here, all of this side of the equation, so it's got to divide 484. It divides all of this side of the equation, so it's got to divide 781. So 11 does divide 484 and 781. We know it is a common divisor, and that's a check in that box. Okay, so is it the greatest common divisor? Well, let's have a look. The greatest common divisor is going to divide 781 and 484. So any number that divides 781 and 484 has to divide 297. Because if it divides this and this, it's going to have to divide this for this equation to work. And then we can go down. It divides this and this, so it has to divide this. This. So going all the way down, any divisor of 484 and 781 has to divide 11. So 11 has to be the greatest one. So 11 is the greatest common divisor. And we can do this more generally as well. We can do this with any 2 numbers. And now I am going to get a second bit of paper.
Can I just say, I'm really impressed by the numbers I chose.
Yeah, they were great numbers. To get something that has a few steps that look nice, and ends in not 1. Because if you've got co-prime numbers, it'll end in 1, which looks great, but looks kind of like maybe they all end in 1. But no, these are actually really helpful numbers.
I know, I had no idea what was coming either.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased with myself.
I am very, very happy with that one as well. So now there's another trick to this, and we can use it to go backwards. So, if we now start at the bottom, we can rearrange this equation to make 11 equals, okay, well it's going to be 77 minus 2 times 33.
So you've rearranged.
So I've rearranged this equation.
Yeah.
So I want to change the 33 now, so I'm going to rearrange this equation. So I'll keep the 77 as it is, but rather than having minus 2 times 33, I'm going to have minus, and then in brackets, well, 33 is 110 minus 77. So I've just replaced here the 33 by what we find from this equation by rearranging. And then we can collect like terms, so this becomes 3 times 77 minus 2 times 110. And if you were to work that out, you would find that 3 times 77 is 231, and 2 times 110 is 220. So this does work out as 11. Great. Now we're going to replace the 77 using the next equation up. So here, 77 is 187 minus 110. So 3 times 187 minus 110 minus 2 times 110. Okay, so 3 times 110 here, add 2 times 110, so this is minus 5 times 110. And we're going to keep going. And this will probably now be sped up because it's going to be a whole bunch of repeated calculations. Final step, we're going to replace the 297. So this becomes 8 times 484 minus 13 times 781, take 484, which is 21 times 484 minus 13 times 781. Okay, so we have now reversed Euclid's algorithm. And we've got our greatest common divisor as the sum of 2 multiples of our 2 original numbers.
Right.
And we can always do this. So if the greatest common divisor of, say we've got A and B as our numbers, and let's say their greatest common divisor, which we often write as brackets, I'm going to call this D. Using this algorithm, we can always find U and V integers such that UA plus VB equals D. Now notice I deliberately said integers, they can be negative, as we've got here, but for any A and B, we can always find U and V such that the sum of UA plus VB is their greatest common divisor. And this is called Béziers lemma. Now, there's one final fun thing I want to tell you about Euclid's algorithm, because we were saying how great Brady was at picking numbers. What are the worst numbers that Brady could have chosen in terms of taking time to write down?
Okay.
So,
because if I'd chosen prime numbers,
if you'd chosen prime numbers, we would have got to 1 because they would have been co-prime. But we could have got there fairly quickly, 101 and 103, for example. Well, the first step would have been that 103 is 1 times 101 plus 2, and then we get 101 is 50 times 2 plus 1, and then you get 2 is 2 times 1. So that actually ends really quickly.
okay, but you're asking what would have gone long.
What could have gone long? And the answer is consecutive Fibonacci numbers.
I would not have guessed that.
So what that essentially means, if you have Fibonacci numbers, is every one of these steps is 1 times something plus something. So here's a small example for Fibonacci numbers. Let's say we've got 55 and 34. And you'll already notice I'm writing the numbers smaller because I know this is going to take a while. So we've got 55 is going to be 1 times 34 plus, well, actually by nature we're going to get the next Fibonacci number, right? So it's going to be 21. And 34 is 1 times 21 plus, well, what's the next smallest Fibonacci number? 13. 21 is 1 times 13 plus 8. 13 is 1 times 8 plus 5. My blessing. 8 is 1 times 5 plus 3. 5 is 1 times 3 plus 2. 3 is 1 times 2 plus 1. And then 2 is finally 2 times 1.
And you told me if you ever get a 1 as your remainder...
Yep, they're co-prime.
That's co-prime.
And you'll see, because of all these 1s, this took as many steps as you can.
Yeah. So I took a lot with mine.
You took a fair amount.
We took a while to get to 2s and 3s here.
Yeah, it was this 2 that... So this was nearly as inefficient as it could be, but it could have been worse if they were Fibonacci numbers. And the historical reason why this is interesting is that in finding this, it was said it was the first foray into complexity theory. So the first time that anyone considered how long could an algorithm take, what's the maximum complexity. And it has also been described as the first practical use of Fibonacci numbers. Fibonacci numbers have been discovered way before anyone started to apply it in this situation, but no one had found anything they were useful for until this algorithm.
If you like number file videos, you're going to love some of the mathematical content here on Brilliant. It's clever.
Okie dokie. Hi there, hello. I'm back and I haven't made a video in a while because I was sad. A serious thank you to everybody who sent me nice messages while I was away and watched the compilations so that the algorithm would not eat my channel and poop it out, which is what algorithms do. Feces everywhere with those things. Now, am I still sad? Absolutely. But will I spend the rest of my life paralyzed by sadness? No, I probably shouldn't. One thing that is extremely helpful when part of your world comes crumbling down is a drastic change to your hair. This solves all of your problems forever and ever, I have come to discover. Sponsor me, Manic Panic. Also, I have a slightly raspy voice today, which is not from sadness. It's either from a seasonal cold or I'm on like step 2 of an Animorph-like transformation into Janis Joplin. Hey, 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 Bobby McGee. Yeah, that might be what's going on. So anyway, on this channel, I do a video series called It's Weird Out There, where I take a look at the weirdest news stories in the world. The non-apocalyptic ones, the ones that don't make us go, oh no, stuff's not good. Last time I did a video all about animal news stories, because animals are weird. Look at this one. Almost suspiciously weird this one is. What's it up to? I don't trust it. But then I started focusing on one animal in particular, the most weirdest game of all. Human, to be precise. These stories I'm talking about today are from at least a few months ago because I wrote this script with Jeff Haggerty before I was sad. But then I became...
Here. Ad Astra Abyssal. Ad Astra Abyssal.
But where is this information available in other regions? Should I even go for clear?
My parents always say, no matter how busy life gets, you should always sit down and enjoy a proper meal when you get hungry.
Game sad, as I mentioned earlier in this very video. Roll that clip.
What I like to do is stack my plate up high.
I'm almost sure that was the wrong clip. So here are some weird things that people have been up to out there just beyond your front door by a number of miles, depending on where you live. I don't necessarily know you or your current geographic location, or do I? Let's begin. A man wearing Batman pajamas foiled a robbery attempt. This guy saw another guy breaking into cars and went out and not only stopped him, but pinned him, which I totally would have done too, but I sleep in the nude, so no, you can't do that. Cops show up and I'm totally naked, pinning a screaming dude down to the ground. Who do you think they're shooting? If you answered everybody, that's correct. This happened in America. Stay out of politics! I apologize for that. I have been radicalized since I've been gone. Check this out. Punch in a little bit. Don't do evil stuff, please. Stay out of politics! Okay, I'm done. None of that more at all. One thing that super bugs me about this news story, though, is that the reporter from the news video says that the man was wearing Batman pajamas similar to the one she's wearing. But she's just wearing bat pajamas. Those are bats, madam, not Batman. Is this that fake news that people are always talking about? Because I think I just lost all trust in the mainstream media. Stay out of My favorite part of this story, however, is that this fake Batman caused the same ethical quandaries as the real fake Batman. He had the cops all condemning vigilante justice. Officers caution that intervening in a crime isn't always safe. Police emphasize that surveillance cameras and quick 911 calls are typically the best defense. That's just a nice way of saying, don't be doing that stupid thing again, silly boy. Which is how the internal monologue of all police officers sounds, you see. A city in Japan proposed a 2-hour daily limit for smartphone use. This is probably a decent idea since a lot of us are at least a little addicted to our smartphones. Just for illustration purposes, for example, I have used mine today, which is just absolute crackhead behavior. I'm pretty sure, though, that much like you after trying to take my smartphone away from me, this thing has no teeth. The article says that the city, quote, will urge all smartphone users to limit screen time to 2 hours a day outside work or school under a proposed ordinance that includes no penalties. So that's like barely a step up from a light suggestion. Hey, don't do that. Or what? Nothing. I'm gonna keep doing it. This thing sounds as pointless as trying to set a 2 Oreo limit. There is nothing you can do to stop me once I get going, and with anything less than a full sleeve in my mouth, I don't feel anything at all. The article says that the idea prompted online backlash, I guess from people that didn't read the article and see that there are no consequences for not listening. Hey, I don't like this idea at all, so don't do it. Well, now I gotta find something else to be mad at. I'm gonna go look at some headlines and get mad about them without even the slightest interest in getting more context. Hey, Bobby McGee. It's getting, I'm one step further on the Animorph timeline, I think. A video game modder was issued a cease and desist letter by Nintendo. So this guy was making mods of Nintendo games and monetizing that. So Nintendo was like, don't be doing that. We charge children $90 for games. You think we're above suing you for this? So this guy did the logical thing and put that actual cease and desist letter into Super Smash as a wearable skin, meaning you can actually play as a legal document, which is amazing in its own way, but also bittersweet for me and my make the new Fortnite map a giant last will and testament petition. I was only 3,999 signatures away. It's pretty fitting that he made the cease and desist letter a skin for Jigglypuff, since both she and legal documents are great at making you go right the f to sleep. I'm actually of the belief that Smash Bros should have even more complicated legal documents as playable characters. Pikachu battling against the divorce papers that his wife just served him. Princess Peach drop-kicking the subpoena that forces her to testify against Mario for tax fraud. How many coins did you pick up on the side, my dude? Be honest. Or even Waluigi stomping the NDAs that hide the fact that he was the most frequent traveler on Epstein's plane. That's right, I'm on to you, Waluigi. You can't wah your way out of this one. Or I guess you can. Everyone seems to be getting away with being on that plane. Nothing happens to anyone ever. Stay out of it. Shouldn't be political. Someone at a Taco Bell drive-thru accidentally ordered 18,000 cups of water because of, you guessed it, AI. Listen, this is not a surprising story at all. In fact, this is incredibly on brand for both Taco Bell and AI, because Taco Bell loves getting your order wrong and AI loves the overconsumption of water. Hey, Bobby McGee. Oh, we're getting close, Janice. In all fairness, though, this isn't the worst way Taco Bell has incorporated AI. Has anyone noticed their recent commercials? Hello, it's Taco Bell commercial. Thanks to human AI and not AI, we have a new menu. Items today. Pacific Shrimp Jesus Burrito. That's a great idea. A gordita with too many fingers. That's actually a great point. And honestly, you're not wrong to think that. You hungry? Anything else I can help you with today? Just let me know. Taco Bell. There are 4 R's in Taco Bell. Scam experts attended a global anti-fraud event in Singapore and got scammed themselves. So more than 50 attendees of this event scanned this QR code that said it was going to give them the opportunity to get ahead in a line, but instead it did a scam on them. This was actually a mock scam that had been put into place by the organizers of the summit with the purpose of raising awareness of what are called quishing attacks. So with these, wait, quishing? Quishing. That's what they're calling QR code phishing scams. Quishing. That's the worst word I've ever heard. You could have come up with any word because you're making up a word and you went with quishing. All right, anyway, with these quishing attacks, the scammer, I can't get past the word quishing. We're gonna talk about that instead of this. Quishing sounds like a disease you get at Hogwarts from drinking expired butterbeer. Quishing sounds like the sound of you stepping in something where you for sure have to throw out your shoes afterwards. Quishing sounds like an item on a British restaurant menu. Quishing sounds like a skincare trend Gwyneth Paltrow would try to trademark. Quishing sounds like a medieval torture technique where they dip you headfirst into a swamp. Quishing sounds like a new celebrity you'd see in a Getty Photos album of the Met Gala and you'd be like, that's an entirely new person, that no one's ever seen that person. Why are they wearing a live capybara? And finally, quishing sounds like a Pokemon that tries to scam you with a QR code. Okay, I think I'm all done with the quishing, but also I'm not going to do this story anymore. I don't want to fall down another quishing hole, which sounds like a den for an animal that has the face of a star-nosed mole and the body of a naked mole rat. Let's move on. A company in New York released a limited number of pints of breast milk flavored ice cream. Now, before we jump to conclusions here and just outright say that that's disgusting, let's actually think about this for a second here. Yeah, no, that is disgusting and not a good idea. Although, I'll tell you, it actually is a good idea for something, though. Great sting operation to take down some freaking weirdos. Which flavor should I get? Actually got a new flavor for you today, breast milk. Ooh, yeah, I'll try that one. Ah, you're busted, we gotcha. But you're arresting me? No, just, we know now. We know about you now. Ah, dang it, I'm on a list now, aren't I? You're on a list now, yes, that's right. Here's the weird part, though. It's not even real human breast milk. It's just made to taste like it. It is made of milk, though, which is cow breast milk. So that's pretty normal. Less normal, I feel, though, is that the ingredients include bovine colostrum, which is the first milk produced by cows after giving birth. Colostrum, if you didn't know, humans produce that too right after birth. It's rich in a bunch of essential nutrients for newborns, and it's full of antibodies and stuff. It's good for babies. And I know we drink cow milk, and that's weird in its own way, but definitely let the little baby calves have the colostrum. Milk, very questionable, but colostrum, that's for sure not for us to be drinking. I almost feel like it'd be less messed up to put actual human breast milk in this ice cream. Get out of here with your bovine colostrum. Ah, I get angry about stuff now. That's my new brand. Angry Ryan. Hey, Mark Zuckerberg sued Mark Zuckerberg. No, I didn't have a stroke in the middle of that headline like I usually do. Mark Zuckerberg, a bankruptcy lawyer from Indiana, has filed a lawsuit against Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta. Bunch of snow just fell off my roof. That was crazy. Mark Zuckerberg, the lawyer's Facebook page, has been disabled 5 times in the last 8 years since Meta's moderation systems flag his account as falsely impersonating Mark Zuckerberg, which I think is crazy. People still use Facebook? Okay, hello to my new editor friend, Johnny. Hi. Johnny, please add a rim shot there because of how good that joke just was. This thing? Which, by the way, a rim shot is the ba-dum-tss thing. Oh. Don't be putting any butt stuff in this video, please. That was a part of the onboarding binder. You should know this.
Oh, that wasn't just our private messages?
It was in the butt stuff chapter.
Oh, you mean this thing?
That big section right in the middle, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Anyway, Mark Zuckerberg said, quote, "It's not funny. Not when they take my money. This really pissed me off." Okay, sorry. Just trying to lighten the mood here. Jeez. To be absolutely clear here, I'm obviously rooting for Mark Zuckerberg to win this case. If I'm the judge for this case and I see the evidence laid out on my juicy little desk, I'm going to be inclined to tip this in favor of Mark Zuckerberg, especially when you consider Mark Zuckerberg's history. The fact of the matter is Mark Zuckerberg here's got to do what's best for Mark Zuckerberg, and if that means going toe-to-toe with Mark Zuckerberg in a Zuckerberg versus Zuckerberg trial, that's just what Mark Zuckerberg's got to do.
Wait.
I just hope Mark Zuckerberg and or Mark Zuckerberg grow from this experience. That is as clear as I can make my position on this matter. Well, that's the end of that video, and good news, I was told by the authorities that no more weird things are going to be happening from now on. But if they do, I'll be reporting on it. You'll hear it here. You'll hear it here first. Hey, Bobby McGee. No, I sound like that Simpsons 13 character. Now, I skipped.
A few months ago, I got a letter, an invitation from the Royal House of Anime, gods of anime. Wit Studio invited me to come over. I could not pass up. They've animated Attack on Titan, Spy Family, a ton of shows, and even the new upcoming One Piece. This is
Say what you will about 2025, but it was kind of an incredible year for internet weirdos getting their faces smashed in, as we saw on December 20th in the fight Chase Damore versus alleged sex trafficking enthusiast Andrew Tate. Now, going into this fight, everyone thought Chase Damore was walking to the electric fucking chair. Even the commentators are ready to watch this man die.
Nobody in this arena believes in the champion, but the only person's opinion that matters is his as he dares to take out the Cobra.
And that's because Andrew Tate is widely known as a former professional fighter and specifically a kickboxing champion. But what happened that night is that Andrew Tate got his fucking face rocked by a person who punches like this.
Chin down, break your knees. I like that. Oh, boy.
And yet somehow, that is the man who took Andrew Tate, the alpha male of our generation, to his limit and well beyond it, honestly making Tate look like he has genuinely never been in a boxing match. And when I went and watched the footage of this, it kind of set off that alarm in my brain for, we'll say, fraudulent martial arts bollocks. Because how does a former reality TV star beat someone with so much experience fighting? And the first part is that they're both former reality TV stars. People forget that, but that is how Tate got his start. Andrew Tate has established this idea among men online that he is like the gender's savior. He is this person who is going to lead man, and I mean specifically men, to some kind of promised Neverland. And I think that's true if your promised Neverland is also just full of sad, lonely men. But okay, with Andrew Tate, you have this person who's built up this aura around himself as like this just samurai warrior battling back against the world, one of the last old school. And you see this in like big publicity stunts, like recently when he fought 60 men in a row, which is interesting because if you watch the fight against Chase Damore, one of the most notable things is Tate gasses out halfway through round 2. And so how is someone able to fight 60 men in a row? How is he now gassing out a fucking round and a half in? And I think the answer to that can be found in even just watching a couple of seconds of Andrew Tate's 60-man kumite. Not only is he fighting vastly inexperienced fighters compared to him, most of these guys are like tiny and look like they have never been in a fight ever. When I heard about like this 60-man thing, I assumed it would be like against actual boxers or something like that, but genuinely like these guys have no idea what they're doing in the ring, and it's like one or two of them maybe look like they've been in a boxing match once, and the rest are just genuinely like the saddest looking guys. And it's such a weird scam because if you look in the background of these videos as well, you can see all Tate's opponents being drilled and forced to do these like excruciating exercises. And like if you've spent any time training in martial arts, you know what this feels like. At the start of a lot of classes, you do these like physical drills that are designed to get like your blood pumping and designed to tire you out. And a lot of the time, these drills can be more tiring than fighting themselves, because in fighting you can pace yourself, you can kind of stand back, you can play it defensively, you can be cautious. But when someone is commanding you to do these drills, it can be like the most exhausting thing in the world because there is no reprieve. That's what every one of these dudes had to go through before fighting Tate. So like not only is he fighting inexperienced boxers, he's fighting exhausted inexperienced boxers, and meanwhile like he's just able to like dance around and chill, you know? And so it's like clearly this is an attempt to pass off Andrew Tate's fighting abilities as something they are not. But how do you then explain Andrew Tate's 4 different title wins? Well, you start by looking into them. We first need to look at the organizations that Andrew Tate fought under to win these titles. And 3 of them were the International Karate Association, which was an organization established to create like a title around a karate/kickboxing rule set. And from watching a couple of his fights, I will say, does it look like Andrew Tate has spent time kickboxing? Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely does. Was he one of the best in the world? Well, that's where things get a little complicated. You see, that organization, as well as Infusion, which he also won a title for, these are not world-class organizations. They are legitimate and they are respected, but for the most part, they've been like historically seen as feeder organizations into more well-established places like K1 or Pride, and not of a global standard. How can I prove that? Well, let's take a little look at some of the people Andrew Tate was fighting in his matches with these organizations. Take someone like Too Hot, Scott Gibson. His only fight, Andrew Tate, who he beat. Okay, that's a little unusual, but it's not that unusual. Luke Saenz, also Andrew Tate, also beaten. So take someone like Lee Whitfield. His only fight, Andrew Tate. Someone like Ollie Green, Andrew Tate. Paul Randall, Andrew Tate. Adnan Omeragic, 4 fights, 3 losses. And you can see the exact same in Lulian, who again, 4 fights, 3 losses. Jean-Luc Benoit, 3 fights, 1 win, 2 losses, all to Andrew Tate. And it just keeps going like this. This person actually does have like some significant wins, but Andrew Tate was his second fight, or his first fight ever. And a lot of these guys have so many losses, you kind of have to wonder why they're even fighting in the first place.
But there was one fighter on here that really stood out to me as something really, truly odd.
And his name is Miralem Ahmeti. And there's 2 very strange things about Miralem. First of all, if you go up to the top of his Tapology profile, you get this text. This fighter has been found by Tapology to have engaged in activity which does not conform to combat sport standards, has purposefully participated in bouts with no reasonable path to victory, displayed a lack of competitive effort, and is unjustifiably matched against more skilled opponents. In other words, this is someone who purposefully fights more skilled opponents in order to pad out their record. And what's even stranger is if we go to the bottom of his win-losses here, we can see he lost his first match in 4 minutes, round 1. He lost his second match in just over 1 minute. He lost his third match in less than 30 seconds. His fourth match in just over 30 seconds. His fifth match in less than a minute. And it just keeps going like this until, in 2020, this guy who has taken nothing but first round losses fights Andrew Tate. So what we can take from that is a very clear and obvious attempt to mislead people. If you are Tate and you want to show that you're a legitimate fighter, that is not the kind of person you fight, and that's because this is all about creating this online persona, this illusion. And I think the problem is that Tate started huffing his own fumes and believing that he really was that guy, and he's not. And look, I will say, I'm like no expert in fighting. I am like the most hobby of hobbyist martial artists, but I also don't think that the fact that I do martial arts proves anything about me basically at all, except the fact that I'm kind of dumb and I like to fight. That's it, you know? And so using it as this way to mislead people, I really have a problem with that. And it's why I was a little bit delighted to see Andrew Tate get fraud checked in this fight. In the first round, I'm not going to say he looks good because I'm not even saying this to be like mean or an asshole. I don't think either fighter looks good at any point in this fight. Chase definitely doesn't look like he can box in any serious way. But I would say the same of Tate. It looks like Tate is relying on like a lot of his old kickboxing tactics to get him through this, and kickboxing and boxing, there is such a massive world of difference between the two. Towards the end of round 3, you can start to see Andrew Tate melt into sludge like the Wicked Witch of the West, and he gets like blasted a couple of times here. And like, you know, if I could give him any credit at all, I think he did a decent job staying on his feet given the fucking mauling he was taking. He was basically just having a large dude wail on him for 6 entire rounds. But I don't know how you can look at this and not look at stuff like the 60-man Kumite or his like his ridiculous win record and think that it's anything other than this just attempt to establish this person as someone he is not. Like, I remember back in the day, like, people were talking about Andrew Tate facing like one of the Paul brothers, which is not a fight I would really be interested in seeing or care about. Both Paul brothers would fucking kill Tate, and for me to be defending the fucking Paul brothers or saying anything positive about them, that should show you what a fraud Andrew Tate is in terms of his fighting ability. It is kind of ridiculous. So then towards the end of the fight, he just has absolutely nothing. It's literally like one of those cartoons where like a nerd is punching a bully and it's just doing nothing to him. He just gets blasted over and over, and it is one of the biggest like reality checks I have seen anyone get ever. And you know what? Here's the thing I'll say. Andrew Tate lost this fight, and I get it. Losing fucking sucks. You know, I always remember when I was a white belt back in my old gym with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I got to a point after a year and a half, 2 years, where I was like on the verge of becoming a blue belt, and I was just like smoking every other white belt in there. Like, if you were wearing a white belt in that dojo, I wanted to fight you and I wanted to beat you. And I would say, like, aside from a couple of draws, that happened nearly constantly. And then one day, there was this new guy there. He was a transfer from Spain, also a 4-stripe white belt. I fought him and he absolutely dog walked me for like 5 straight minutes. He must have tapped me out like 3 times in that time. And I was so shocked at the loss. Like, I couldn't believe it. And I always remember I was walking off the mats and I heard another white belt say to another white belt, man, if that guy can do that to John, and that fucking killed me, you know? But what I didn't do is I didn't like do what Tate does here. And Tate does this thing, and I fucking hate this so much, where basically he makes a bunch of excuses and then says, but I'm not going to make any of those excuses. He's like, you know, I could say that I'm too old, or that you know, he's much heavier than me, or that, you know, he was putting all his weight on me and tiring me out, or you know, and he says, I could say all that, but I'm not going to. And the problem there is you already fucking did, you tit. It's like he's already given his audience all this like ammunition to be like, oh, well, Tate would have won if he had done this and this. No, fuck that. You lost. You lost because like you weren't ready for this fight. You like, as much as Tate talked himself up like before this fight, saying all this stuff like, I've just been training for 3 years straight alone in my home under house arrest. It's amazing how the second he loses, that immediately becomes, I mean, I was trapped in my house for 3 years and, you know, I couldn't train. And like, if you go back and you watch his 60-man Kumite, afterwards he gives this like monk speech about how he trained. This is him every day, and he trains every day. The fuck he does. I remember reading the book Clown World before, and one of the former victims of Tate basically said how he did a lot less training and a lot of just watching the Great British Bake Off. That is who this dude is. And look, I know I'm probably not going to change anyone's mind about Andrew Tate with this video. It's like, if you are a Tate fan, you are probably steeped in that and you have made up your mind. I don't think in 2026 anyone's opinion on Tate is changing. But please just try and see, like, this is the person you have strapped your life to. You know, this is the person that you have been like, look at this god, look at this amazing person. He's just a fucking dude, and a dude who looks like he doesn't train that hard. That's it. And so, like, genuinely, if Tate had just lost the fight, I wouldn't even think it's that big of a deal. I do think it's like a significant aura shatter, and it's proof that, like, it's a persona people are buying into here. It's not a genuine person. As much as people suspected that already, I think this really proves it. But what really pissed me off is the excuses and then the I'm not gonna make an excuse. You know, I think that is such cowardly, embarrassing shit. Sometimes you just lose. I was at boxing last night, fought a guy I'd never fought before. Dude rocked my shit. Why? Because he was better. I'm going to train harder. I'm going to try and fight him again. But that's it. He was just better that night, and now it's up to me to do something about it. So yeah, like, I guess the point I would want to put on all this is the fact that someone loses isn't embarrassing. I think losing is a necessary part of getting stronger. But the need to make excuses afterwards while pretending you're not making excuses, all of that lumped on top of this fucking very strange win record and this fucking pantomime of a 60-man fight, that shit's embarrassing, dude. Hi, I hope you enjoyed this video. Streams will be back this Friday. Go check them out over at twitch.tv/SuperEyePatchWolf. There's a link to the schedule below. I love you. Goodbye. So you got to give it up to Jake Paul. He went 6 rounds with one of the best boxers in the entire world. And while he didn't win, I think you got to say that the heart and that the determination he showed in this fight is absolutely worthy of praise. Is what some fucking horseshit Netflix documentary is going to say in about 8 months. So I watched the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight this morning, and man, I have thoughts not only about the fight but about a lot of the, we'll call it, commentary surrounding the fights. It's incredible to me that Paul still lost and you are still seeing all these allegations of like the fight being scripted and just like all this kind of shit. And I really feel like so much of it just comes from people who have never fought and will never fight. And look, I will say that I have a certain amount of training in boxing, in taekwondo, in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I am a dog shit fighter by professional standards. I am a hobbyist martial artist at best, but god damn it, I am proud of it. And I think I can give a little insight here because really it's just kind of nuts what people are saying. So if you want to know what the scam was with this fight, all you had to do was look at the size of the ring. It was fucking gigantic, and it was gigantic for a really simple reason. Paul's plan was never to win here. His plan was to run and duck and do everything he could to not actually fight for 8 rounds, then last for 8 rounds with Anthony Joshua and say, I went the distance with one of the best in the world. That is unquestionably, in my mind, the plan here, or at least it was. Because Paul got absolutely starched with one of the most rancid straights I have ever seen. So first of all, let's talk about how Paul lasted 6 rounds with one of the best boxers in the entire world. And what I would say to that is, did he? Because what I watched was not a 6-round boxing match. It was 4 rounds of someone running for their fucking life. 1 round of someone absolutely getting taken down, I think twice. I think Paul got knocked down twice in that 5th round. And then just a mauling in that 6th round. And I think people who are saying that, like, oh, Anthony Joshua went easy on him in the first couple of rounds, Anthony Joshua must have been paid off, it was rigged. I really don't think that's what was happening. I think what happened is that when you fight someone, it's actually very difficult to do anything with an opponent that is defending 100%. I had a roll just this week, and it was a guy I'd never rolled with before. He'd been doing jiu-jitsu for about 3 years, and he was a huge big guy. I would say like easily good 40 or 50 pounds on me. And he was really big and he was really strong. And so like a lot of big strong lads, he came in and he tried to double leg me. I scooped him into a front face lock and then I underhooked his arm and then I got him in a cow catch. You can look that up. I won't explain what it is, but it ended up with me having him in side control. From there, he scrunched up his arm. So he's on the ground now and I'm like on top of him. And he's like this, and he's just doing everything he can to not let me grab a wrist or isolate an arm or anything like that. And because he's so big and strong, there's not a lot I can do. Now, I'm never in any danger of losing the position, but in terms of sinking in a nice submission on him, it was really difficult. And I must have been there for like 3 or 4 minutes, you know, trying to bait him different ways before I was actually able to catch him. That is exactly what we saw with this fight. You had Jake running away away. You had him covering up and just being as defensive as he could, while just throwing out the very kind of like, you know, the very mildest kind of offense, but never really committing to it. Even the one decent right he landed, Joshua shook off in like a second. But then we get to the most cowardly shit I have ever seen in a boxing match, because what Paul was doing is that he was incorporating grappling. And so there's two ways he did this, and the first is like kind of legit. It's when whenever Anthony would get close, Paul would like just grab him in a bear hug and just hold on for dear life, because while he's like that, Anthony Joshua cannot knock Paul out. You have to have someone at the right range to knock someone out. 1-inch punches do not exist, and it's very difficult to hook someone when they're literally like hugging your chest and have their ear pressed against you. Like you cannot build up the torque or power to do that. So whenever this looked in any danger of turning into an actual fight, Paul would clinch, or, and I could not fucking believe what I was seeing, he would shoot for a takedown. He would literally go down on his knees and try and ankle pick Anthony Joshua in a boxing match. And it was like pathetic. It was genuinely so cowardly. So let's explore why he did this. We know that he wanted to go the distance, okay? But how can we never see an actual boxer do that? And the reason for that is an actual boxer would never fight like this, because an actual boxer wants to win. They want to show that like they are the better boxer, that they have trained, that they have put more time in, that they have committed themselves to the art of boxing and have developed the skills necessary to win. Paul is not interested in that because he's not a real fighter. He's a clown. You might as well put up a fucking circus tent around the ring for the actual intention here. Because all Paul wanted to do is he wanted the fight to go the distance, and then he wanted to claim that he went the distance, he was the best in the world. And it kind of worked for about half the fight, until the 5th round, when now Paul was tired and couldn't keep running away. He couldn't keep up the pace of just like taking down Anthony Joshua and like running around the ring. And when he got tired, the inevitable happened. He got caught. He got utterly outclassed, outpowered, outsped, outskilled. This was like watching a rabbit fight a tiger. And a lot of people expected that, but I think people didn't expect it to go into the 6th round. I'm not surprised it took this long, because having studied Paul's fights, as you can see in my video, how Jake Paul keeps winning fights, I knew there was going to be some bullshit, and there was. As for Anthony Joshua, he was very like respectful of Paul after the fight, and the reason for that is simple. He made such unfathomable amount of monies from this fight. I haven't looked up how much he made. I don't need to. It was some ridiculous number that most of us will never even be able to comprehend. And I'm sure he would like the idea that they could do this again someday and he could make that same amount of money. So like, he gave his dues to Paul. Paul isn't paying me anything. This was some cowardly fucking bullshit. And I think worse, it's like, I see people giving him props online, and it's like, do you realize what you are giving props to? This is a guy who has the money to hire the best training, the best coaches, the best nutritionists, the best physios, all the like most cutting edge imaginable technology in the world, going up against people who never had those privileges, going up against people who like made themselves boxers, and Paul is pretending to be them. He's pretending that they're on even footing, when the truth is that even with all Paul's advantages, he is an utterly mediocre boxer, like nowhere near world class, and never will be. All this fight is the same shit Paul's fights always were, going in with some weird exploitive game plan. And it doesn't matter if it's challenging MMA fighters to boxing matches. I'm not going to explain again why that is so dumb. Go watch my video. Or beating fighters with records more padded than the walls of the lunatics who are giving Paul props for this one. Despite all his advantages, he looked like a scared child in there. And listen, look, like, I am not a great fighter, not even close. But like, a lot of the people I train with, they show up before work. They come in after work. Some of them train like, twice a week, 3 times a week, and that's all they can manage because, they have jobs, they have lives and responsibilities. Those people are infinitely more fighters than Jake Paul will ever be. I will say it again, I am not a good fighter by any stretch. I would so much rather have my skill set earned honestly with a genuine attempt to grow than whatever the fuck Jake Paul is doing. Two nights ago, John Cena, one of the greatest of all time in professional wrestling, had his last match, and oh my god, people are mad. If you're not familiar with the situation, I'm going to lay it all out in a way that non-wrestling fans can understand. And I think first, you got to understand what John Cena is. There are two types of relationships a wrestling fan can have with John Cena. Number one, you were a child during the period of Super Cena, in which he was a literal real-life Superman, the goodest of the good, the best example of what humanity could be. Or the second option is that you were an adult during the Super Cena period, which now is about 15 years ago, and you fucking hated him. You hated what he represented to wrestling. You hated that this big, muscle-bound, very average in-ring guy was getting the push he was and just beating everyone. John Cena was a walking, talking toy commercial, and that's definitely how I felt. I fucking hated John Cena when he started to come up. I cried tears of rage when I watched him tap out Sabu. It was like that for a long time, but I think as I grew older and John Cena matured as a performer, I developed this kind of begrudging respect for him, which eventually turned into real, genuine affection and admiration. I think it's impossible to say that John Cena doesn't love the fuck out of professional wrestling, and as someone who also loves the fuck out of professional wrestling, it was hard not to respect him. He'd put over younger guys, and he never left the business behind, unlike other people. Dwayne, he never felt ashamed of wrestling, you know, and it was always really beautiful to watch him come back a couple of times a year and put on some of the most interesting shit imaginable, like his stuff with AJ Styles or Kevin Owens, or multiple with Bray Wyatt. There was one match with Bray Wyatt in particular, one of the WrestleManias, where the whole gimmick was Bray Wyatt, this evil Bayou cult leader, trying to convince John Cena to come to the dark side. He was doing everything he could to mess with John Cena's head, including throwing him a chair and being like, "Do it, Cena, kill me in the middle of the ring in front of all these children." I miss Bray Wyatt so much, but Cena wouldn't, because Cena would never ever go to the dark side, and that's going to factor into our story here, and also a huge part of why people are so mad, because 1 year ago John Cena announced that the time is now. He was going to be retiring in 1 year, and he had 32 dates left, 16 matches. And this was a very bittersweet moment for a lot of wrestling fans, because first of all, how do you retire John Cena? That is the same as asking, how do you write the last episode of The Simpsons? How do you write the last Superman comic? Like, how can you possibly end such a monumental part of pop culture? Like, even if you don't know about wrestling, you know who John Cena is because he is that big, and a huge part of that was because of what he meant to professional wrestling. Things got off to a really interesting start because WWE did something that no one ever thought they would. They actually pulled the trigger and turned John Cena to the dark side. This took place at this year's Elimination Chamber, and it was deeply shocking. Travis Scott and The Rock were both there for reasons I don't understand. And look, I'll be real. I don't know who Travis Scott is. I never knew. Up until about maybe 4 months ago, I thought he was the drummer from Blink-182. And then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it did seem a bit weird that the drummer from Blink-182 was married to one of the Kardashians. But then Michelle was like, no, Travis Scott is also married to one of them. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this is confusing. And it doesn't, the point is Travis Scott was there. I don't know why. It didn't matter. Watching Cena just transform was one of the most incredible moments in wrestling. I don't care what anyone says, it's still like just this legendary occurrence. It left me so shook, and I was so excited to see where it would go from here. And to me, it really did have the juice. Like, watching John Cena come out, a heel John Cena, and address the crowd was phenomenal. And it was phenomenal because it was real. Cena would come out and he'd be like, you people are the reason I am like this. I have been trapped in an abusive relationship with this audience for 20 years, which is true. Cena was like meant to be this like Superman back in the day, but people like me, fucking hardcore wrestling fans, never gave him a chance. We booed him and we jeered him. He would be main eventing WrestleMania and we would chant Cena sucks. We would give him hell. It was Roman Reigns all before Roman Reigns. And seeing that history brought back up and thrown back in our face, that's like the uncanny line between like reality and storytelling that I think only wrestling can really do. And it was incredible. And you know, there were missteps, there were moments that didn't work for me. I thought the reverse pipe bomb was kind of awful, and I am so sick of WWE telling me to remember the pipe bomb. I don't care. It was 12 years ago. But then one day something really strange happens, and it's that WWE decide that John Cena doesn't need to be heel anymore, and he just kind of stops. Someone in creative or something decide that the John Cena heel run isn't working. And I find this so infuriating because to me, there was a huge part of this run was that it wasn't meant to be fun. This big cartoony superhero of a man was turning into this just smoldering, hate-filled individual from all the years of abuse he'd endured at the hands of fans. And that was the point. He would come out to complete silence. His Titantron wouldn't show like a video, it would just say John Cena. His whole gimmick is that he was going to take the world title away from wrestling. He was going to retire with the belt as the last real champion, meaning everything that came after him was going to be a sham. John Cena was trying to destroy wrestling, and it was beautiful. But I don't know what the fuck happened. It's like people just couldn't accept it. Like, there was a vocal backlash against the storytelling, and it makes me so mad because I feel like one of the problems with modern day WWE is that it's always the most fucking cookie cutter shit now. There's never nuance, there's never subtlety, and I feel like their audience is now adapting to that. You know, they don't want interesting stories, they want the good guy to win and for everyone to cheer. And it's so tired, and it was so frustrating watching this happen. So then at SummerSlam, Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. Cody Rhodes wins the belt back. And it's just, it's like a decent match, but it's like a face versus face match. And it just, to me, it felt like a real slap in the face because it was basically WWE saying, hey, listen, we can do whatever we want. Narrative weight, storytelling, fuck you, it doesn't matter. We want to turn John Cena good again, and so they turned them good. And so like there was some good stuff from this era, like Cena versus AJ Styles turned into this this incredible contest of like AJ Styles, TNA, this other company versus WWE, John Cena, and they started doing like all the finishing moves from everyone, like each respective brand on each other, including Bray Wyatt. Seeing his sister Abigail from John Cena was just like this devastating and beautiful moment, like just this tribute to this incredible performer who was such a part of John Cena's history. But it felt directionless. You know, it just felt like, okay, we're in the final couple of months of John Cena and there's no storyline. You know, he's just floating from date to date doing the John Cena shit, and it feels like nothing. And so then they open the John Cena Invitational Tournament, a tournament to basically choose John Cena's final opponents. And I really hated this idea, because what it means is now you're taking the focus away from John Cena and onto the tournament. And I know people are going to say that's the point. They want to build someone up to beat John Cena, but it didn't feel like that. You know, it just felt like, okay, you know, sure, let's pretend that LA Knight could possibly be the final opponent to John Cena. But Gunther ended up winning, and I love Gunther. I love him so much, and I particularly remember him from his days as Walter, and particularly when he was the OTT champion. That is a Dublin-based wrestling federation that I was a huge fan of back in the day, and particularly during the Gunther-Walter era. I'm going to talk about that another time, but it was incredible. So finally, we get to this match, and they have like one TV spot to build up the match, and man, the match hits, and it's a good match. I don't want to take anything away from either Gunther or John Cena. This is the best John Cena has looked in years, and just in general this year, I think his match quality has been pretty high. But we get to the end of the match, and Gunther, one of his big finishers is the sleeper hold. He's able to wrap you in this rear naked choke kind of hold and just make people pass out or submit. And this is interesting because John Cena's whole gimmick is never give up. John Cena hasn't tapped out in over 2 decades, and it's a huge part of his character, this perseverance, this ability to overcome everything. And there's this really desperate struggle towards the end of the match as Gunther keeps snagging John Cena in just this brutal submission hold, and then John Cena, the immortal Superman, powers his way out of it, only to get caught again and again and again. And finally, Gunther has John Cena in the middle of the ring. John Cena's exhausted, he can't do anything else, he's locked in that sleeper, and he gets this look of just kind of relief on his face, and he taps out. John Cena, the Superman of wrestling, actually taps out, and that's his last match of all time. And the crowd are fucking furious. They are chanting bullshit. John Cena's final match, and the fans in attendance are chanting bullshit.
I don't know if I've ever uttered those words. Cena taps out.
Oh well.
Which I personally cannot interpret as anything as a catastrophic failure in wrestling storytelling. This is a failure on par with Roman Reigns winning the Royal Rumble. Go watch my Roman Reigns video if you want full context on that. But yeah, it's, as a long-term fan of wrestling, and as someone who's had like a mixed relationship with John Cena, not actual relationship, we're talking real parasocial shit here, buddy. It was really sad to see. I was heartbroken to see John Cena getting bullshit chants in his last match. And there's a part of me that's like mad at the fans in attendance, because it's like, how fucking dare you boo this, or how fucking dare you chant bullshit at this man? The locker room empties out and everyone's like trying to applaud John Cena, and it's a real strange, bittersweet moment. But Triple H, the current like creative director of WWE, comes out, and the fucking boos this man gets. And that's when you kind of start to realize this isn't just about this one match. The fans are furious because John Cena's final year was absolutely fucking botched. And I think it was botched because I don't think WWE have the creative integrity to stick to what they wanted to do. They wanted to turn John Cena heel. They wanted to make him this They wanted to show people this new side of John Cena and end his career on that. And I think there's absolutely a path where that works. To me, the whole way you do this is you focus on the fact that John Cena can't do it anymore. He's been wrestling for 23 years. His body is broken down. He's in his mid 40s. You know, he was balding up until last year, and he got the hair plugs, which look great, by the way, and people shouldn't shame the dude for that. Fucking, if dudes want to get hair plugs, let them. Don't be worried.
I'm really sleepy. But also I want to eat something. Because that's how my sleepiness goes. So I'm gonna check something.
Worried about it. And so that should have been the storyline. I think John Cena, his body breaking down, not able to do this anymore, that's what motivates him to become a heel. And I would have loved to see this entire year, the entire roster trying to get the belt back from John Cena because they don't want him to retire with the belt and be the last real champion, but also bring him back to the light side. And so to me, you run that program all year. You end it with heel Cena versus face Cody, and Cody bringing Cena back to the light. Then you do that final match with Gunther. Because then when John Cena taps out, and I would keep that the same, it's him accepting that he can't do this anymore. Because no one's immortal. No one can do this forever, not even Super Cena. And that final tap out could have been this really beautiful acceptance of that. And I still do think there's an element of that in that final match. Honestly, I don't hate the ending. I think John Cena tapping out in his final moment in WWE is actually this kind of beautiful statement about how time does catch up with us all. But a lot of people didn't see it that way. A lot of people hated it. And I think the reason they hate it is because this entire year was a fucking disaster. People were so jumbled as to what to feel going into this final match that when the ending hit, they didn't understand it. And I don't blame the fans for that. I blame WWE. I think this is the most creatively bankrupt I have ever seen WWE. And I'm not happy about that. I'm not rooting for AEW or WWE. There's a ton of shit I wish was different about WWE, but I've always subscribed to the philosophy, don't support promotions, support wrestlers. And it's devastating, honestly. Like, I'm upset that this is how John Cena's career ends. You know, I'm upset that this is a send-off. And I guess if there's any solace with it, it's that John Cena himself is happy. He's happy that people are talking about it. He didn't want to go heel because he thought that they wouldn't have enough time to do it. And I think he's just happy that he's still relevant and gets to go out relevant, because my God, there are so many more tragic ends for wrestlers, as we have seen time and time and time again. So yeah, you know, it's bittersweet, but I guess if I want to say anything, it's that I wish John Cena the best. You know, like, I went through my era of absolutely fucking hating him, and I now just feel grateful that he did what he did and he gave us all so many memories. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much, John Cena. You will be missed.
So Dr. Mike, wait, that's not right. Let me just...
Disclaimer, this video is educational and informative in nature. Do not contact anyone shown in this video. Also, this video is discussing steroids. Do not use steroids. This is entirely for educational and entertainment purposes only.
One of the most obvious signs of steroid abuse within anybody, male, female, or whatever you are in between, is aging. You have such a drastic amount of premature aging. Clavicular is somebody who's really popular in a lot of different headlines and titles right now. And a lot of what he did to LooksMax was prematurely age himself using steroids from the age of potentially 14 years old upwards, based on his postings on several different forums. I think most people would agree that basically Clavicular looks a lot older than 19 years old, and that's part of the reason that he has LooksMaxed, because he looks 25, maturated as a male. Now, for him, it may have visually worked out, at least for now, positively, but for most people, this is not the case. And we've done a lot of different case studies on this channel where we talk directly about the aging and steroid use and how common and really a big problem that it is. We've shown my transformation from being on steroids in bodybuilding to getting off of them and just sort of doing this whole influencer thing, I guess, and how drastic that change really is. We've also showed other influencers, Vigorous Steve being one that I think a lot of people can relate with because he's kind of an older age trying to be a dad now, and so he started to phase out of the bodybuilding crazy lifestyle and looks a lot better for it. But what about young guys just hopping on? Well, you see this actually a lot on Reddit. People posting their before and afters of their first or second cycle and asking for people's opinions. And there's genuinely no better place for that these days, this type of degeneracy, other than Derek More Plates More Dates subreddit, which is somehow wildly active. It's about the only subreddit that I ever go on anymore because it's the, well, I'll be honest, it's disgusting and toxic as hell, but that's kind of why I'm on there. It's very incel. We're for it. You know, back like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, peak Derek times, there actually used to be a subreddit called r/steroids, and it's been heavily redacted and censored now, and I really miss that subreddit because it was so great. You basically had a bunch of people pretending to be professionals talking about what they were doing and as well posting their stories about using steroids, and my genuine like pastime was to just go through these stories and look at how people were fucking themselves up and say, you know, wow, I'm glad I'm not doing that. But anyways, I figured we'd hop back on Reddit and look at some of these stories that people are telling. So this guy posts brutal premature aging from steroids. And now I don't think this is actually op posting about it, but he is definitely sharing people who have shared their before and afters of steroid cycles before. And you can definitely see the guy here looks drastically older, like drastically older. Does he have a better physique? Sure, but at what cost, right? Like we completely whacked back the hairline. We've grown an entire new forehead, so there's like this duality of foreheads on his actual head. Yeah, he's gotten some muscle, but he looks about literally 10 to 15 years older. Literally 10 to 15 years older. Same mirror, same gym, same guy, just looking diabolically eviscerated in terms of his visuals. Here we have another guy, same kind of situation. Started out genuinely sick physique for most people, right? Like something that I think most people would want. The guy has a gifted 8-pack at a starting point. He spawned with this, which is sick. And then he hopped on the Sazul, and of course later on he don't look so great. He don't look so great. Now again, does have a sick physique. Don't want to take that away from a guy. That's a great component of life, but it's not the only component of life. And oftentimes when you walk down this path for long enough, it starts to become the only thing that you're actually thinking about. And part of the problem with this current society pushing steroids to the youth very quickly, especially in an algorithmic sense, right? It's like social media platforms just push all of like the Tojis out there to young kids, telling them, hey, let's blast gear. And I'm not like some conspirator or anything. Like, this is actually happening. It's not some crazy stuff to talk about, really. But in this post, I think he's trying to help people out and explain some things that you can do to avoid premature aging and as well using steroids. Let's just take a little bit of a look at what he has to say. He says, avoid DHT orals and trend like the plague, except maybe Anavar. These synthetic androgens that the body doesn't recognize cause tremendous oxidative stress, which increase cellular aging. Not to mention damaging to your organs. That's kind of not true, but also true. Every androgen at a super physiological dose is going to cause oxidative stress and increased cell turnover, which is really the big problem here. He is correct to say that DHTs can age you, but again, just as well can any androgen. The thing with DHTs, dihydrotestosterone derivatives, so to give you a brief background on what this really means, dihydrotestosterone is a 5-alpha reduced, which is the 5-alpha reductase enzyme, cleaves up testosterone and then makes dihydrotestosterone by changing its carbon chain. What scientists did to find an androgen that they can use for therapeutic purposes for females and young children was take that DHT molecule and cleave it up some more and try to make something that's a little bit more user-friendly and not going to lead to so many androgenic side effects. Well, fast forward a couple years, it gets put into circulation and used in humans. Turns out it doesn't work so great for that specific use case, and so they stop the production and manufacturing of these things and the approval for for human use and lost to space they are, except bodybuilders have sort of gotten them back from the underground, literally, and abused them. Now, uniquely, dihydrotestosterone derivatives seem to impact estrogen very potently. Masteron, primobolan, they seem to decrease total estrogen. And when that happens, you do lose a lot of collagen synthesis, a lot of antioxidant status in your body. Estrogen, believe it or not, is a very powerful antioxidant and something that I think most people should try to encourage being at normal physiological levels versus smashing down, which is very common practice within bodybuilding and general enthusiasts trying to enhance their physiques. Why? Well, elevated estrogen typically leads to, oh boy, we're getting in the weeds here, influencing the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, which increases extracellular water retention, making essentially you not look as sick in the mirror. So, you know, people try to bring it down as much as possible. In exchange for that, you do end up looking quite a bit older. And we've talked about this a lot actually with females and males, because females will use androgens, shut down hormonal production, but not kind of backload any form of estrogenic compounds to increase estrogen in their body. They'll basically just mainline a DHT without any testosterone, shutting down their ovarian excess, and then, you know, voiding their body of any estrogen, whilst also sometimes taking SERMs, selective estrogen receptor modulators, just again, perpetuating the sort of aging and detriments of taking anabolic steroids. He also mentioned some of these androgens also directly degrade collagen and elastin in the skin. Just take a look at Todd Lee, who loves Masteron. He went from looking quite handsome a few years ago to looking like a microwaved bullfrog nowadays. That's crazy. So me and Todd Lee are friends, but I think he does kind of have a point here. This is Todd Lee. A microwaved bullfrog is definitely a strong choice of words. This video is quite some time ago. He does look younger, of course. Is he, you know, reversing the bullfrog microwave aesthetic here? Probably not. I think he's, you know, he kind of looks like how he looks, and that's just Todd for you, but an interesting take nonetheless. He is right though. We've covered this in as well many different videos. He's absolutely right. I mean, every androgen receptor activation beyond some super physiological amount is going to cause premature aging. You're basically pushing cells into overdrive, right? Accelerating molecular aging at a very fast pace. Androgens generally increase mitochondrial activity, good in the sense of performance, bad in the sense of, you know, longevity, because the higher amounts of metabolic rate really increases reactive oxygen species, and this is inevitably what creates unstable molecules that damage DNA, RNA, leading to problematic cells. It is, in fact, one of the most critical features of biological aging. You having reactive oxygen species, damage to RNA, DNA, so on and so forth, the pathway continues, you know, you get fucked. But then you also have the issue with telomeres, right? And so telomeres are basically, just consider it like a strand of DNA. And every time a cell divides, it gets a little bit shorter and a little bit shorter because it donates part of itself to that new cell. And when you get to an endpoint, right, you've shortened that telomere by so much, it can't continue to divide. And so you're left with this like old raggedy ass cell that is defective most likely and probably not healthy to have around your body, but it represents itself in dysfunctional organs. Your skin is a very large organ. Then again, you have the problem with estrogen. This directly is usually going to be tied with androgen use in a lot of individuals.
Okay, what else? When it's gonna get stoned. Bad. Partition Night Terror doesn't exist anymore. 18 days.
Lower estrogen is gonna just fucking wreak havoc, brother. Like you're gonna lose collagen synthesis, you're gonna have a thinning of the skin, it changes fat patterning quite significantly, so you actually lose a substantial amount of fat in your face, and it can lead to like these nasal folds that I have from bodybuilding, quite literally, and other things too. So just not all around not good. He says unless you're a competitive bodybuilder, stick to tests. There is no point of training muscles for your youth indicators. Test only and maybe Anavar is all you'll ever need. This is a tried and true fitness model stack that keeps your sex appeal without destroying your looks. Most of the juicers here do it for recreational purposes. You can accompany all of your physique goals with test alone. You'll also get the benefits of high tests like sex drive, EQ, I don't know what he's referring to there, emotional quality, I don't know, cognition, and motivation without the bullshit side effects typically associated with steroid use. He makes a very bold claim. Testosterone is actually the safest steroid by far and isn't even close. As long as you keep your blood pressure and blood work in check, test is very safe. Alcohol and cigarettes are 100 times more dangerous than test at 300 milligrams. Bioidentical cycles plus 5-alpha reductase inhibitors for hair loss is literally all you'll ever need. Also, never crash your estrogen. Estrogen actually stimulates both collagen and elastin synthesis in your skin and tendons and is more neuroprotective. Estrogen, when in range, of course, keeps your skin looking youthful, while an exogenous testosterone. Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely correct. You guys hear me say this in almost every single video. Testosterone, if you're going to have to use steroids to accomplish your goals, which 99.95% of people don't actually want to be an open bodybuilder. They don't want to be in classic physique. They probably just want to look really, really good to the average person. Yeah, you only really need testosterone ever for that kind of thing. And then what's really great about that is we know the end fates of testosterone, right? Like, I wouldn't say it's healthier. It's just that we know how to mitigate the side effects from testosterone because we've been studying it for almost 10 decades at this point. And that's information that we don't have with any other androgen. So yeah, we know how to manage estrogen. We know how to manage dihydrotestosterone and prevent, hair follicle miniaturization quite easily. But what we can't do is control for synthetic androgens, which we don't have a lot of mechanistic data on, and we can't control for certain things that there aren't drugs to control for us, like the metabolites of some of those drugs. It's almost 9 times out of 10, if you had to use some kind of steroid, better to use testosterone, hands down, at a very low to moderate dose. Now, I'm not saying do that, because most of you, again, very clearly don't want to be an open bodybuilder. You don't even need gear to look really, really good. You need to lose some fat, brother. That's probably 90% of what's wrong and what could improve your physique, facial aesthetics, and most everything. Is testosterone safe? Well, yes, in the context of a therapeutic dose, but just about nobody is taking a therapeutic dose, and there's always risk factors that compile when you start to go into super physiological ranges of anything. Someone mentions in the comments, all I heard was that I should blast away with DECA since it's not a DHT. I know this is a joke, but I forgot to mention DECA. It's not as androgenic and is super hair and skin safe. You don't even need a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor on it. Also great for collagen. I want to know where that came from. Why is it uniquely better than any other androgen, right? You see this a lot, right? Where people just like extrapolate and embellish mechanistic data that hasn't been tested in humans, nor do they understand the full complexity of it. You know, there's multiple types of collagen fibers and androgens all together. Androgen receptor activation inhibits certain synthesis of certain fibers. So you might argue that, yeah, it increases collagen synthesis, but that might mean for your tendons and ligaments, not for your skin at all, actually. Also, saying that it's super skin safe and hair safe is radical. In fact, this subreddit's God did a video on a woman who used nandrolone, and very clearly you can see it is not skin safe, hair safe, or anything of the like, even though this was the only substance that she used for that duration of time. She had all sorts of hirsutism, facial hair growth, virilization, and just about none of the positive effects what people say is like, a lot of people will say, oh, nandrolone is completely safe for your hair, it's completely safe for your skin, it's not a dihydrotestosterone derivative. When you mediate the androgen receptor, there is a certain very objective effect from doing so. A lot of people get too caught up in their head with thinking that it's somehow safe because it's mechanistically slightly different than testosterone, but it's still gonna fuck you up, brother. Moral of the story, how can you avoid aging on steroids? Well, you can't. So like 200 to 250 milligrams of testosterone is a really great dose for a lot of people who are willing to enhance. But again, like I said, I think 99.5, 99.8% of people probably don't even need to go that far. You just need to get a diet. You need to get locked in on something, right? Like something where there is a routine and a habit built in place, and you'll probably look the way that you want to look. Like, yes, some people are going to want more, and steroids are an intervention for that, for sure. But most people are just dissatisfied with how they are currently and want an endpoint that they're imagining for themselves quicker, and steroids is the bridge to get there instead of having to take the long way around. Ultimately, that shortcut costs a lot of things: hairline, skin health, acne, emotional issues and instability, the sleep issues, the development of neurocognitive changes due to architectural shifting in your brain, like so much more, especially with nandrolone. And this is why I tend to preach against nandrolone only, is because we have plenty of data to support things like tren and nandrolone altering brain architecture more than any other androgen, which is highly concerning. So take it as you will, I guess. It's kind of my thoughts in this subject. By the way, folks, if you're wondering how I make these videos and stay super locked in and cognitively focused and talk to you without really many cuts at all, it is using methylene blue, the blue stuff. It makes your tongue blue and your mouth blue. You might actually see me in some videos with my
At 10 o'clock tonight, trigger a power failure. Can you do that?
Yes.
Turn it off.
Okay.
Locked in a concrete cell beneath their feet, an intelligent robot named Ava is counting down the minutes until her cell door opens. The proof that Caleb made good on his promise, and the climax of the entire film. The only problem is that this top secret plan was recorded.
It allows me to do this in full view of you both. Place a new camera in there. Battery powered, of course. And then...
You have to help me. I'm going to.
Caleb is caught red-handed at the most critical moment, 1 minute before the planned escape. Better luck next time, I guess. It seems as though the bomb has been defused. But how did Nathan know this was going to happen? Well, this is the exact outcome he planned for. He set the stage perfectly, so Caleb, oblivious and under false pretense, would decide of his own free will to rescue Ava.
Ava was a rat in a maze, and I gave her one way out.
So my only function was to be someone she could use to escape.
Yeah.
So, looking at the bigger picture, the experiment to test Ava's AI was a success. Sure, Caleb feels used, but he played an essential role in a world-altering event. I'm sure he'll get over it in time. But that's not gonna happen. Before the night ends, both Nathan and Caleb will be dead men. From the very first frame, Alex Garland's 2014 film Ex Machina manipulates and weaponizes the audience's trust. Garland hijacks our perspective, and we don't even notice. He ensures that we never see the true chaos until we're already in the eye of the storm. Ex Machina is a film about deception, not just between characters, but between the film and the viewer. And before we can understand the hubris of Nathan and Caleb's final moments, we have to unpack the deception of each player involved, beginning with the
You shouldn't watch too much.
We talk about books weirdly now. So I got recommended a short form video the other day featuring the comedian Jimmy Carr, and I want to play it to you.
Top 3 books? Oh, that's a fucking excellent question. What age are you, Rhett? 37. I would read Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money. It's a brilliant piece of literature. I would buy Die with a Zero. I'm going to struggle with the guy's name. That's a brilliant book about getting older, what to do with money, how to live. And I would read, Finnegan's Wake is the greatest piece of literature ever written, but it's more fun to read about than to read because it's fucking tricky.
Okay, so this is Jimmy Carr, stand-up comedian and TV host, really. I would describe him more as a TV host than stand-up comedian. Is asked for his top 3 books, and he goes for 2 pieces of personal finance, one of which he describes as literature, which maybe is a stretch, and then Finnegan's Wake. And I was sort of taken aback a little bit by this, because I think it's another entry in this kind of slew of weird ways we've started talking about books, as the role of books has really shifted within our society, mostly from just being a mass undertaking, right, where lots of people would habitually read, and therefore books were this kind of like a medium of thing that you did in the same way that we quite naturally watch TV, to a much more kind of niche pursuit and sort of a genre in and of itself. And this particular clip, I think, is very much bound up in the particularly complex relationship between books and masculinity. So some of you might be watching from outside the UK, where I don't get the sense Jimmy Carr is as big of a figure as he maybe is here. Jimmy Carr is a stand-up comedian, although, as I would say, probably more of a TV host. His biggest gig here in the UK, probably hosting a show called 8 out of 10 Cats, which is a sort of comedy panel show in the style that has been really, really popular here in the UK for some time. He was host of that for many, many years, I believe, still is, and is kind of pretty good at that job of like wrangling a bunch of like 6 other comedians or guests or whatever, and kind of inserting little funny bits in here and there. Also does some stand-up comedy, and is currently on a kind of attempt to, I think, realign himself with the kind of mostly American sort of intellectual in some regard, or at least would like to think in terms of thoughtful kind of podcast bro world. He recently did a interview on Trigonometry, which is a British podcast, but which is in that world. It was on Joe Rogan just slightly less than a year ago. All of which, to my mind, is kind of intriguing, because he is sort of trying to do this kind of vaguely intellectual thing where, on Trigonometry at least, he was talking a lot about various different political policies. Like, as a comedian, it's hard to get across the extent to which he is a kind of broad base, is it unfair to say lowest common denominator? Like meant not in like a mean way. His sort of, most of his jokes would be like, oh, I only had sex with your mum, didn't I? That's not his accent. I only went and had sex with your mum. Here is a clip of him roasting hecklers in 4K.
Yeah. I thought you liked men, not women. You thought I liked men, not women? Oh, sir, the disappointment in your voice.
Sorry, actually, he does do a kind of Cockney thing. Maybe he was trying to do an impression of the other person?
I realise you have probably shouted that out with just a Salt Bay pinch of homophobia there. But you've made yourself sound incredibly fucking gay, mate.
He is also, I think, an ex-investment banker, I think, or worked in property or something, like ex sort of... I'm going to have to look up. Apologies, he was not an investment banker. He worked in the marketing department at Shell. Clearly that's where the best of his art happened. But no, I'm joking. Like, he is, as a TV host, he's like pretty good at that job. Like, I often think watching TV these days, we sort of don't make TV hosts anymore, like people with the ability to do that. He's kind of good at that as a function. His stand-up, what I've seen of it, he tends not to kind of string a whole bunch of stuff together. It tends to just be like a bunch of little jokes. So the fact that he's kind of sort of lowest common denominator comedian is intriguing, that he's now trying to do this kind of intellectual pivot. But these particular book recommendations in this clip, I think, really speak to a kind of weirdness that exists at the moment between masculinity and the act of reading. There's been like a long-standing conversation about the lack of men reading fiction, right? It seems to be the case that when it comes to reading, men are particularly drawn to the idea that it has to be kind of a utilitarian act, that it has to be sort of useful in some way, and so are more drawn to non-fiction stuff or stuff that is in some way impressive. Both of which that I think really come through here, right? You're either reading something that is personal finance, which is always intriguing because a lot of the stuff that is non-fiction that I think gets talked about in a lot of these kind of podcast bro manosphere spaces is actually quite pop non-fiction. Like, it's not particularly deep stuff. A lot of it is kind of self-help of some description, which both of these kind of books in some regards are, but with a particular focus on money. And then the final one, the only work of fiction that makes it in, is a quote-unquote classic, and more than that is Finnegan's Wake, which, you know, maybe Jimmy Carr is a massive fan of. Maybe he reads it, has read it many times. Maybe, as he suggests, he reads about it a lot. But is the kind of book that you would pick if you wanted to say that one of your favorite books was like a quote-unquote impressive pick. And I'd say this without trying to do the thing, like, I've read Ulysses, I've not read Finnegan's Wake. I sort of enjoyed the task of reading Ulysses. Took, you know, quite a bit of time, and you kind of have to read a thing alongside it really to kind of pick out all the things that it's doing. I don't think I would necessarily pick it in a top 3 of books to read. Certainly not in like a kind of like recommendations way. And I think all of this is a product of just this massive shift in the position that reading has within our society, which I think has been taking place for quite a long time, which has really started to be kind of noticed and picked up upon a lot, particularly over 2025. And some of you might have seen a Substack post which did the rounds in the middle of the year by
might have fucked up a bit by not doing the correct stuff in time. Yeah. Fuck me. Oh, that's fine. 5 days, 5 hours.
A Times journalist called James Marriott about the dawn of the post-literate society. I think Marriott then went and did a bunch of podcast interviews. Here he is chatting to Jared Henderson, who is a fellow Nebula-ite, about the end of literacy. What does it mean to live in a quote-unquote post-literate society? In fact, this podcast round felt like a kind of evidence within an example of the fact that he was doing the kind of like podcast tour that one might previously have done having published a book based on a Substack post, right? Which functionally has like a lot of similarities, but is at the very least much shorter than a book. And I think reading becoming a much more niche pursuit really changes the way in which we talk about it and kind of the function that the act itself serves. So I spent the early parts of my career largely working in theatre, which has always been a little bit more niche than reading, partly because it's a thing that happens in a specific place, you have to go to it. There's therefore usually been more of a cost to doing so, but maybe in the past was slightly more of a mass pursuit. And the fact that, at the time I was doing it, was already much more niche than it had been, meant that the ways in which people talked about theatre were very different to the ways you might talk about cinema, talk about watching TV. And one of the first of those things is that the act itself becomes a thing that says something about you. So whether that's doing theatre or whether that's reading books, suddenly someone who is a reader is kind of someone who is set apart in a way that someone who watches TV or goes to the cinema or likes music is just another person. And with that does come the temptation maybe to frame yourself as someone who reads Finnegans Wake, right? And is by the virtue of the mere act of reading is sort of better than or is impressive. The other, and I think the one that's maybe a little bit sadder, is the fact that people start to come to view the medium as a kind of genre. And I think some of this probably underlines some of this relationship, particularly with masculinity and books, but maybe with everyone as well, is the ways in which if you watch a bad film, you assume the film was bad and you watch another one. If you listen to a bad piece of music, you assume that piece of music was bad and you pick something else next time. If you read a bad book now, you potentially just don't read for a while, right? The act itself becomes a kind of genre that you decide you don't like that genre, rather than you decide that particular book was bad or that particular kind of book was bad, because the sort of wide range of stuff that is available starts to look like one thing. But the big question is how much of this actually matters. So in his piece, Marriott thinks that it very much does, right? He kind of paints reading as a kind of essential act of democracy, that a society which doesn't read is a lesser one, is maybe one that is less able to contend with big ideas. And that is kind of one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, we have, the notion that ideas are ideas, and the way in which we communicate them doesn't matter all that much. Maybe this is just people being scared by the new, right? People being scared by change. And so I think it's interesting to try and tease out what are the things that do and don't matter. So one of the things that was really useful and that changed a lot about books early on, post the printing press, is that it becomes this way to communicate ideas to a really mass audience. And actually, we kind of have other mediums that do that as well, if not much better. right? Shown by the very fact that Marriott was able to get out a Substack, and it got around to a bunch, probably more people than a book or pamphlet might have, much quicker. And it's hard to overstress like how long a book takes to kind of conceive of, plan, write, publish, distribute, and get out. Like most books probably take, good books at least, probably take many years to go from idea to out there. When you're reading, you can often tell a book which has been really produced to like jump on a very sudden thing that is happening. Equally, books are often credited with being a really important moment in the development of the concept of the nation. It was one of several ideas which is kind of touched upon in Benedict Anderson's Imagined Communities, but is talked about a lot more elsewhere, of the book in being able to reach so many different people, allows whole countries to talk about particular ideas, and therefore allows you to kind of have a shared discourse across a huge amount of space, where previously a lot of countries might have had really strong regional cultures, and then maybe kind of like some sort of like elite culture, which didn't necessarily spread across the whole body of the country at all. And that is a thing that, again, we kind of do have better ways of doing now. Big TV moments are able to be watched by lots of different people in a way that really was at its height during the age of linear TV. And I think social media kind of disintegrates a little bit just because stuff is so targeted at different groups of people. But I think the moment that Marriott kind of really hits the point is this idea of, do we have a better medium for exploring really in-depth ideas over a extended period of time, right? Not just the think piece where you kind of throw something out there in 1,000 words and go, all much to think about, but the kind of extended exploration and discussion of a thesis or an idea or a approach to analysis. And that I don't think we've quite hit upon. I just don't think there is another medium that does that quite as well. And I say this as someone who largely makes stuff in video form for YouTube, right? Video is very good at some things, and some things that books also are good at, right? Being able to like engage a reader or an audience member through kind of linguistic or artistic flourishes. You can do a lot of that stuff in a well put together video essay. What you often can't do is explore the idea in the same length. In fact, I would say that video essays often, or can at least, do a similar task to a standard personal essay that you might previously or might still read, I don't know, in the New Yorker or somewhere. I think video essays can do it. That's not to say they all do, and obviously the fact that there are a huge amount of them means that some will and some won't. I think can do that task. I don't think there is an equivalent to the book, just because the video would have to be so long, and at that point you can't really engage with it in the same way. You can't flick back and forward in the same way. I quite often see on Reddit people asking people for like, oh, I watched this video where this idea was mentioned. Can you tell me what video that was? In a way that book serve as like quite a good way of cataloging that kind of thing, or being able to have a bookmarking or a notebook or a note sort of bookmark in somewhere where you wanted to remember a particular idea. You just don't have in quite the same way. And there is a lot of talk about this kind of death of social media at the moment. There is a lot of discussion about the death of social media at the moment. John Byrne Murdoch put together this article some time ago about how have we passed peak social media. So effectively, social media peaked in 2022, I think, and has started to drop off since then, some of which will probably be pandemic and then post-pandemic related. And yeah, I think a lot of that energy that was previously being spent on social media is just that we've made social media less social, right? That time is being spent on short form video instead. And short form video, I think, kind of is the antithesis of reading, for better or for worse, right? It might be more attention grabbing in the short term. However, it just is so condensed in comparison to that idea of spending, at least 5 hours maybe with a certain idea. It's about encapsulating that really quickly. Short form video is also designed not for you to not. Short form video is also designed so that you don't have to watch it until the end. Like, the assumption is that you are not going to make it to the end of the thing, and that you always have a chance to nope out in a way that, I think, to a flaw sometimes, I feel like I have to finish a book even if I'm not enjoying it or finding it interesting, because it has this thing called a conclusion, right? That makes you feel like you have not done the thing if you've not got to the end. And you've now reached the end of this video.
Nice conclusion.
Hello, viewer. You can tell this is serious because there's no music playing. A year ago, I made a video essay called The Bizarre World of Fake Video Games, and I really loved making that video. But you can imagine my shock when the publisher of Vermis, HoloPress, reached out to me and asked if I wanted to create an entire book about fake video games. A year later, that is exactly what we did. A high-quality, hardcover book filled with reviews, previews, and retrospectives on games that never existed. I scoured the internet looking for the most insane and beautiful fake video games I could find, and working with the artists who created them, as well as our graphic designer Marco, who is just one of the most...
Cool stuff.
Thank you. Hello, gamers. I'm officially back from my self-imposed hiatus.
Oh, right. Right.
Which means two things. One, that streams will be returning this Friday, I think at 11 a.m. EST, somewhere thereabouts. And two, I'm back, cause I'm real fucking mad. That's right, this is a video where someone is angry about something on the internet. And the thing I'm mad about is... Are you ever watching a TV show and you love it, it's like the best thing ever, it's like makes you so happy when you watch it, and it gives you so much to think about, and you tell it to everyone, and it's just a magical experience. And then there's a season break, and then it comes back, and all of a sudden it feels like fan fiction of itself. Well, viewer, today is a tragic day where I must declare that that has happened to one of my favorite TV shows of the last decade. And the TV show I am talking about is The Bear. I absolutely adore the first two seasons of The Bear. I would say that second season in particular is episode for episode one of the best seasons of television I have ever watched, featuring 2 episodes in particular that are 2 of all-time greatest episodes I've ever seen of anything. These are 2 episodes I would put alongside with some of the best episodes of Sopranos, of Wire, of 6 Feet Under, of Mad Men. Just fucking phenomenal television. And if you are not familiar, The Bear is this show about this highfalutin chef. Basically, after his brother dies, he takes over his brother's rundown old sandwich shop and tries to turn it into like a real restaurant. And it's about him trying to process his brother's loss. It's about him trying to get over the abusive workplace he suffered at the hands of his old boss. And it's about him not trying to pass on that trauma to his new head chef, or his new sous chef, Io Dabri. And just a phenomenal show. It's a show so good that the backlash started to it immediately. Everyone was like, The Bear's amazing, and then everyone was like, no, it's not, and then everyone was like, no, we're only joking. It is. It's that fucking good. Cinematography, acting, writing, every episode was just fucking beautiful. The peak of that, as I mentioned to me, was season 2. Absolutely incredible season of television. My personal favorite episode was based around this character called Richie. And Richie is this character where he was the old best friend of the brother who died, and kind of like the not co-owner, but he helped the brother run this diner. But then when Carmy, the new chef, comes back and tries to reinvent the restaurant, Richie has basically this whole existential crisis about like, where does he belong, right? Where does he belong in this new environment, this new workspace, as well as his wife's gotten divorced, his daughter has a new stepdad now, and he's great, the stepdad's great, and so Richie is this character just permanently out of time. Like, just his day is over, the life he once knew is gone. And so in this particular episode, Carmy, the guy who now runs the restaurant, the brother of the deceased brother, sends him to work at this like 5-star elite restaurant. And like, Richie starts working there, and the first thing he has to do is polish forks, and he polishes forks all fucking day, and he's completely like, I don't get the point of this. Like, this just feels humiliating and demeaning, and I'm being insulted by being made to do this. But then like, he gets into this conversation with this other server, and it's like this incredible realization where he realizes this other guy he's polishing the forks with really fucking cares about polishing forks, and he really cares about creating meaning through showing care to other people. And the way he shows care through other people is by making the most fucking spotless forks, right? And there used to be a sign in my old jiu-jitsu place that I loved, and it used to say, do small things with great care. And that's what this entire episode embodies. It's this character learning to like express himself through doing small things well. And like, he struggles, and he screams in his car because he doesn't understand it, but he gets over it, and he comes to understand that the reason he's never achieved anything is because he's never really dedicated himself to the small things, to the finer details, to like actually paying attention, caring, and being something. And I swear to God, if you haven't fucking seen it, I'm jealous of you. Go watch The Bear season 1 and 2. Absolutely just some of the best television you will ever watch. And then we hit season 3, and I don't know what happened. Like, I'm sure I could look up the writers, and there's been a bunch of changes, there's been something. A part of it is like, I think that it became a victim of its own success. Because what happens is you start getting that Arrested Development season 4 syndrome. The Bear is a show about a bunch of really talented character actors all being placed in the same room in a high pressure environment and forced to scream at each other. And you see all these characters' issues and traumas bubble to the surface through cooking, through restaurant management. And it made me care so much about those things. I have read several books on restaurant management. Unreasonable Hospitality is one of the best books I've ever read. Kitchen Confidential is one of the best books I've ever read. And I took so much from that and like put them into like making videos and podcasts, and like The Bear season 1 and 2 are seasons of television so good, they made me grow as a person a little bit.
And now that's going to be it for the stream. Good luck.